From the mountains of Mustafar to the Sarlacc pits of the Dune Sea, I want to hear your nerd shout, and today, I'm shouting about Star Wars. Hey guys! This is Kevin here from nerdSHOUT, and I want to talk to you about one of my very favorite things in the whole wide world. You may not know this, but one of my biggest fandoms, probably my biggest fandom of all, is Star Wars. You get kind of a glimpse of it back here on my bookshelf. This is some of my Star Wars books. But ever since I was a little kid, I have loved Star Wars. I've read the books, I've watched the movies over and over and over again, I've watched Clone Wars, and most recently, I got a chance to watch Star Wars Rebels, the newest TV show from Disney and Lucasfilm. And I thought I'd give you guys my thoughts on the end of the first season. So let's go ahead and talk about the show a little bit. First off, I want to talk about the team. The team on Star Wars Rebels is really actually quite great. It makes me feel like it's a Star Wars team again. It focuses around 5 people. It focuses around young boy Ezra Bridges. You've got Kanan Jarrus, a Jedi. You've got Hera, their captain. You've also then got Sabine, who is a Mandalorian graffiti artist, and Zeb, who is a new species which is based off of Ralph McQuarrie's concept art for Wookiees in Star Wars A New Hope. And you, of course, have to have a droid with them, so they have Chopper, their astromech droid. All in all, I love this team. It feels like the original Star Wars team. You've got Kanan, who, as a Jedi, gives us a very different perspective on what it is like to be a post-Order 66 Jedi. You've all seen Obi-Wan Kenobi in A New Hope and Return of the Jedi and Empire Strikes Back, not in that order. And he's very focused. He's sad, there's a weight on him, we've seen what Yoda's like, but Kanan was a kid, a Padawan, when the Order 66 went down, and so we kind of get to see him dealing with the fact that he was never a full-fledged Jedi, and now he's trying to protect all these people. You mix him with Hera, and you have my favorite duo on the show. The two of them have some magnificent chemistry. They've obviously got a history. I'm reading the book Star Wars A New Dawn, now that I've finished the series, and it tells about how Hera and Kanan met, and it's actually really, really great. Not that I was surprised. John Jackson Miller is a fantastic author. You've also got Ezra Bridges, and he's kind of your focal point of the show. And I'll say this, Ezra starts off a little insufferable. He's that kid who's, I've been on my own for a long time, and I can do everything without you guys. And he's the new factor. The rest of them have been a team for a while, and he's a little eye-roll worthy for the first few episodes as he kind of comes into his own. But once he does gel with the team, there's a lot of really great stuff that happens. I don't want to spoil anything for you guys, but once you get past those first few episodes and they're all finally a family again, it's just really, really great, the kind of dynamics you can see between Ezra and Zeb, Ezra, Sabine. Ezra and Kanan have an amazing relationship, and it's just really, really cool to see this character who I know myself and a lot of my friends who I watched it with were kind of hesitant about this very Disney character who ended up being a really, really interesting character in the long run. The characters that you don't get to know as much of are Sabine, Zeb, and Chopper. You get some really cool things about Zeb and his species in the first, the movie, Spark of Rebellion, and it gives this really wonderful depth to him and where he came from. And then he's relegated to kind of a Jane from Firefly role. He's the bruiser. He's the one who's there to do his job, and he's not going to goof around when there's money to be made. He'll goof around, don't get me wrong. He's pretty hysterical, and Steve Bloom does a great job. But he feels a lot like Jane, and there's obviously more there, much like with Jane, that you can explore. But the one I really want to know about is Sabine. There's one episode where Sabine and Hera get to have a lot of time together, and you really start to delve into the two of them, and it's beautiful. But I feel like Sabine's just kind of there for the rest of the season, and she seems a very, very interesting character, and it may be my love of Mandalorians, but I want to know why this young Mandalorian girl has moved to this tiny planet of Lothal, is working with the Rebellion, and there's so much there, and the character's written so intriguing that I'm hoping in Season 2 we'll get to see a lot more of her. And then, of course, there's Chopper, who seems like you take R2-D2's attitude problems and you turn him into a teenager, which is already saying something if you know R2-D2. that he adds a lot of lightheartedness, and he's got a lot more of the Han Solo grump that nobody else really has, and it's really, really fun. Now, let's talk about the villains. The main villain of Star Wars Rebels is obviously the Empire, and their biggest one is the Inquisitor, a character played by Jason Isaacs. And I gotta admit, the Inquisitor could use a little bit of work. He's this villain who falls into the trap of, I'm a Sith, I'm a bad guy, that's what I do. And when you've got an actor like Jason Isaacs portraying this character, I feel like there's so much more you can delve into. There are some amazingly tense and dark moments with him because Jason Isaacs is just that good, and the writing is really, really great. I just feel like he's a little two-dimensional, which is funny because it's a cartoon. But I really, really wish there could be more. And as far as the Empire in general goes, you've got a really interesting arc even for the Empire, because the whole Star Wars universe has revolved around the fact, especially the original trilogy, that obviously not the prequel trilogy, but it revolves around the fact that the Empire is bad and needs to be put down. And when you start the show, the Empire is bad, it's a bad government, but it doesn't have a ton of weight that we see once we get to A New Hope and Empire and Jedi. But by the end of the season, we really get to see why the Empire has gone from being a government that's corrupt and should be fixed to an entity that must at all counts be stopped. And that's a really cool moment. There's a moment that comes towards the end of the season that's super dark, and I had to go, this is on Disney? Which is a cool thing, because we all worried about the Disneyfication of Star Wars, and this just one moment where even other bad guys went, holy crap, was a really interesting moment and upped the stakes so much for the show that I was extremely on board. Let's go ahead and talk about how it fits into the universe. When Disney took over Star Wars, there was a big hubbub when they announced that they were going to totally toss out the expanded universe. Obviously, I'm a huge fan of the expanded universe, my favorite character from there being Mara Jade. And I know I was very sad when I realized that Mara Jade may not be a thing anymore. Rebels does a really nice job of taking the things that we know to be canon from the films and from Clone Wars, and the things that we would like to be canon, and starting to merge them together. The TIE Fighters are still built by Cinar Fleet, and that's a cool thing that I don't know if I ever heard said in the films, but was talked about in books and video games that they kept, and they moved it over. There's also other great parts about it fitting in with the Star Wars universe. We have an episode with Lando Calrissian, played by Billy D. Williams, who is pure Lando. Just everything about it is still exactly the smooth-talking smuggler. He's in there talking to Sabine and to Hera and really laying it on thick. And the whole time I was just going, yeah, well, that's Lando. And there are other really cool connections with all of the stuff that we want and we miss. I don't want to go into specifics because I don't want to spoil anything, but right at the end, in the last episode of the season, they start to show you that there's a middle ground. There's what we know as continuity, what we knew as continuity, and it starts to come together in the middle, saying there are parts of this that we are going to keep. There are parts that are important to us as well. And that's where I think Rebels really shines. It takes Star Wars and is a love letter to everything we love about it. To me, Star Wars has always been about people finding strength within themselves and within their friends to overcome extreme odds. There is no reason that a farm boy from Tatooine should be able to have a mystical power that should make him one of the most powerful men in the galaxy, but he does. He comes to find that acceptance, and it's beautiful. Han comes to find an acceptance in himself, and that acceptance comes from Leia, and there's all of these great things. I think that's one of the reasons that the prequel trilogy doesn't do as well, because it's so huge and epic and political. It's not about finding that core in you and the people that you are close to and love that we really liked about the original trilogy. And Rebels does that. Rebels fits right in there, talking about these 5 people and their droid who just need to rely on each other, who need to become a family. Ezra grows in understanding who he is as a person. Very similar to how Luke has to come to grips with who he is. How Han has to come to grips with who he is. How Leia does as well. And it's a really, really nice thing for me to see as a Star Wars fan, because I can see that the heart of what I love about the stories is still there. And obviously these people, Dave Filoni, Simon Kinberg, who made the show, have that same love of it that I do. And when you put something that is this important to as many people in the hands of people who love it, I have a really, really huge hope and belief that it'll end up being what we want. And without giving away anything super huge, the final moment of the last episode had such a great Star Wars event that happened that I squealed like R2 when he's in the back of the X-Wing and he gets hit by the lasers. I squealed like that. I was so excited for what they were setting up for Season 2 that I can't wait, and I'm so excited because I get to go to Star Wars Celebration in Anaheim and I get to see the first episode. And don't worry, because I will cover it for you guys right here on nerdSHOUT. So, let me do a little wrap-up. Star Wars Rebels starts off a little slower because of team building and whatnot, but all in all, the heart's still there. And once you get to the middle of the season, and especially Episode 8, Path of the Jedi, which is my favorite episode of the season, there's a lot of really wonderful character work, a lot of love for the source material that's there and grows even more so. Because you always have a hard time getting a team together, and once they do, like 3-4 episodes in, it just takes off and keeps escalating, especially towards the end of the season when Grand Moff Tarkin arrives, which isn't a big spoiler because they announced it all over the place. But when he does, and his voice actor is brilliant, manages to capture Peter Cushing in such a great way, it just takes the show to yet another level. And I'm so excited to see where they go from here, because there's obviously a love and an acceptance of Star Wars and Star Wars fans and all of these things that is going to come into making a really great story for us. Versus Clone Wars, I like Clone Wars. I like it better from Season 3 on, but it's huge. It's disjointed. There's short stories for 3 episodes, and then another short story on the other side of the galaxy, which is part and parcel to telling a huge war story. But the fact that we're able to focus on these 5 people on this planet Lothal just feels like Star Wars to me. It lets you really invest and really, really feel like you're going on this trip with them. And I love it. I think it's really great. So if you haven't gotten a chance to check it out, it is online. Disney XD allows you to, I think it has a subscription that you can go and sign up and you can watch it. Season 2 will be premiering at Star Wars Celebration in Anaheim in April, which I will be there. I will be covering it for all of you guys, so stay tuned for my coverage of that. If you like Star Wars, if you like Marvel, DC, anything at all, make sure you go ahead and subscribe to nerdSHOUT. Comment below. Tell me and the other guys what you'd like to talk about, because we want to make videos for you. We're here to talk to this community about things that we love, and this is just the beginning. So let us know what you want to talk about. While you're here, go ahead, like the video, share it. You can find us on Twitter, on Facebook, nerdSHOUT. It's wonderful. And if you have any questions at all, feel free to tweet us using our hashtag nerdSHOUT on Twitter, and we would love to answer them. Thank you guys so much for hanging out and talking Star Wars with me. It's one of my favorite things. I could do it for hours, and that's what we're here for, to talk about the nerdy things that we love. Thank you guys for supporting nerdSHOUT, and I will see you next time. Remember, let me hear your nerd shout. Bye-bye.